saying that you do not expect the Chinese Communist Party to hold back rare earth minerals from military-related companies in America?
I am saying the agreement is that the magnets will flow freely as they did before April 4th.
Are you expecting them to resume the purchases of soybeans, or are they going to double-cross us on that as well?
Maria, we have lots of levers, and again, they've already started the purchases of soybeans. They've agreed for this buying season to buy 12 million tons, 25 million tons for the next 3 years after that, so a total of 87 million. And then we have lots of other trade agreements that call for soybean purchases. I am confident that post our meeting in Korea between the two leaders, President Trump, President Xi, that China will honor their agreements.
And that was the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, with me on Sunday discussing Beijing's commitment to buying U.S. soybeans and unleashing control of the rare earths minerals to the U.S. China reportedly purchasing 14 cargoes of American soybeans this week, the largest buy since January, as the secretary told us to expect. But a new discovery of rare earth elements in Alaska could deal a massive blow to China. The so-called Graphite Creek deposit contains defense-qualifying materials, thought to be the largest deposit in America. This is very good news. Joining me now is the Gatestone Institute senior fellow, Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Your reaction to all of that?
Well, I hope that the Treasury Secretary is right. Yes, China did purchase soybeans this week, but they're still not on track to meet that 12 million metric ton requirement by the end of the year. We'll just see if they get there. With regard to the rare earths, the November 1 fact sheet of the White House said that all rare earth restrictions imposed since 2023 will be removed. The Treasury Secretary has said that there's going to be an agreement documenting that by Thanksgiving. Again, we're going to have to see. But we have in the past, China has violated all of its trade agreements with the United States. So this is a question that we have got to verify before we trust. I hope that the Chinese comply, but the record isn't very good, and especially when they think we're not looking. We have to go back to the Phase 1 trade deal of January 2020 to show what the Chinese do. And they, I think, violated that agreement to hurt President Trump's reelection prospects that year, and they were very successful.
Yeah, probably. They were very successful on unleashing COVID as well, by the way, and disrupting President Trump's term as well. So we'll have to watch that. Look, Secretary Bessent told me he does not believe the Wall Street Journal reporting is right. He said it was incorrect that China is going to hold back the rare earth minerals from any company tied to the military. We'll know soon enough, won't we, Gordon? I mean, this will come out. We'll know if, in fact, the Journal's reporting is right, or if Scott Bessent is right, that, no, they are going to have the free flow of rare earths and not hold the U.S. hostage.
Yeah. I mean, the Chinese have been holding the U.S. hostage on any number of different things. And now the reporting is that China is going to impose rare earth restrictions on Japan. And that keys into the increasing confrontation over Prime Minister Takaichi's statement on November 7th that she could mobilize Japan's self-defense forces if there were an invasion of Taiwan. So we have to watch that one as well.
That's a great point. I want to ask you about that in a moment. But let me get to this bombshell study, because it finds that Chinese state lenders funneled roughly $200 billion to American businesses over the last 25 years. No wonder they're not thinking about national security. Fortune writes this: much of the lending was to help Chinese companies buy stakes in U.S. businesses, many tied to critical technology and national security, including a robotics maker, a semiconductor company, and a biotech firm. Gordon, can you believe this? I mean, this is why we don't have our own rare earth minerals refining in this country. We had the capability. GM owned a division. They sold the division to a consortium run by China. And now China has, locked up that market. And all that money going to American businesses as a way to get them on China's side.
Yes, and the thing that China is probably doing is using the information that any creditor gets from a borrower, and sending that over to the borrower's competitors if they're Chinese. So this is a problem where China's been sucking up enormous amounts of information from the United States, and by lending to American companies in those amounts, they're obtaining even more. The one thing about rare earths, which you mentioned, China, very determined policy to buy up rare earths around the world. And then when American companies go into business, they then lower the prices and drive them out. This is predatory pricing. We've allowed this. We've known that this is happening. And this has obviously got to stop. We need to stop Chinese banks from lending to Americans. It's a national security issue.
Yeah, and this is China's MO, right? I mean, lend money so that then that country or that region has to pay it back. They can't pay it back, so then China will buy a port or, own the region. But, I still think that the Chinese economy is a lot weaker than anyone really understands. And there's that lever, that economic lever that President Trump can pull to push back on their aggression. I mean, China reportedly now considering a new property stimulus package because there's concerns that the property market is weakening and it is threatening to further stabilize the economy in Beijing. China is still meddling in other countries' economies as well. Now it's banning all seafood imports from Tokyo. You mentioned the minerals. They're banning seafood as well after a clash between the countries and the new prime minister over potential military attacks in Taiwan, as you said. China imported 642 tons of seafood from Japan in 2024. That was worth $2.6 million, Gordon. Your reaction?
Yeah, well, right now, China is using every lever it possibly can, including levers that violate its trade agreements with Japan. But Prime Minister Takaichi is sterner than her predecessors. In the past, China would always do things like this, and Japanese prime ministers would cave in. She has not retracted that November 7th statement, which is what Beijing demands. And this kind of confrontation is going to last a lot longer. But she's a lot tougher. People used to call her Thatcher because she was Japan's first female prime minister. Well, she's Thatcher in another way. She is tough as the Iron Lady. And that's good for us because she's an example of what a small country can do to stand up to China. We're a big country, and we need to follow Japan's example in terms of being able to say no to the Chinese. No, we're not going to be intimidated. She's great.
Yeah, and, that was also President Trump's brilliance to try to ensure he's got very strong relations with the leadership in Japan, Prime Minister Takaichi, as well as throughout the Middle East, as well as throughout Asia. That was what he was doing in these last few trips, Gordon, because he's getting an allied force in the world against the CCP, or certainly to push back on their aggression. Gordon, we'll keep watching it and certainly continue to poke holes here. Good to see you this morning, sir. Thank you. Gordon Chang.
Thank you, Maria.